All right, today we are pulling the motor out of the Trailblazer here. Kind of a blessing in disguise, I think. So you saw in one of the last videos with this thing, driving it, the oil pressure was really low, and then fixed a few things on it, buttoned up the wiring, and put a patch on the oil feed line for the turbo so that we could at least drive it around. And fixed a couple other things on it. I don't remember what it was at the time. Oh, I made a new source for the brake booster so it actually has good vacuum for the brakes and everything. That's all perfect. And I turned the modulator down in the transmission so that it should shift a little bit earlier and more kind of street friendly. Went to take it out and it was reading 7 pounds of oil pressure. So I sent the owner a message and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. I don't want to be the guy to destroy this engine. If I had to guess at what happened, I think that the port on the oil pan being open, I think when it shot a bunch of oil out and it was really low, it wasn't like really low, but it was low enough that it might have spun a bearing. But this thing's never had really good oil pressure. It's always been like in the 20s, so it could have been hurt before I even got the thing. But that doesn't matter because I sent Neil a message and I was like, hey, it's got real low oil pressure, like 7 pounds is what the gauge is reading. And he's like, don't worry about it. If it breaks, I'll just get another one to throw in it. Just take it out, see what it does. It could just be a bad sensor or something like that, or a clogged screen for it. And I was like, all right, as long as you know that this is what's going on, it could just completely blow the engine. He's like, yeah, whatever, don't care. Let's just see what it does. So I take it out and I make it, I don't know, half mile. And these lifters are just clattering. I mean, they are straight up not having a good time. So I sent them the video of it. It just, you can hear them you can hear that in the top end. So I was like, look, before we actually like screw up this block, right now the block should be totally fine. Heads should be fine still. Before we really do some damage, let's pull it out, see what's going on with it. I've got another engine on the stand there we can just throw in it. So that's what we're doing today. I got most of the water drained out of it. Just need to start pulling everything apart. Disconnect the battery, take the belt off, take radiator out, exhaust, intake, disconnect all the wiring, all that crap. Let's get this thing out of here. Alright, so I'm pulling this thing apart, get the intake off, and I see something that I don't usually see with what's supposed to be a bone stock engine. These heads have had a little bit of port work done to them. You can see how the intake runners are all polished. That's kind of weird. It doesn't look like it was done super great, to be honest, but that's kind of weird. So I'm kind of thinking that makes a little bit more sense with why it had low oil pressure. There's definitely been someone in this engine before. It's not a just take it out of a truck and put it in this sort of situation like it was supposed to be. Someone's been in here before. And typically, I like to see totally untouched engines because 9 times out of 10, these engines just work from the factory. It's when you start taking them apart and messing with things is when they start to lose their reliability. From the factory, they're super reliable, but when we start changing bearings, changing cams, things like that, is when there's more of an opportunity for fuck-ups. So that's kind of what I'm thinking happened here. Someone had to have been in this engine, and it could just be the like O-ring for the dipstick tube. It could be the seal for the front cam plate. I don't know. But we're going to find out. All right, the engine is ready to come out, but it physically cannot come out. So on both sides, put this, good enough. So on both sides, these motor mounts are hitting the bottom of the block where all these recesses and everything are. So I've been messing with this thing for probably 40 minutes, and I don't think there's any way around it. I've got to cut one of these mounts off to get this thing back together, which is a total travesty. That sucks so much. They had to have welded them in there with the motor in and then said, screw it, that's it, and never bothered to think about possible future servicing. So if I could get the engine out, I could probably clearance the bottom of them, because there's still half an inch or so from the bottom bolt holes, and that might be enough on each side, but I can't. So unfortunately, I've got to cut at least this one. This thing is just the gift that keeps on giving. So I'm gonna cut this off and we'll finish pulling the engine out. All right, so the engine is finally out. Did have to cut one of the mounts off. Shouldn't be too bad to put back on there. So I think the this has a dished flex plate on it. That's weird. It's a 6.0 block. The front has the 6.0 stamping. This has a 5.3 or 4.8 flex plate on it though. Looks like they notched it out for the converter. Convenient. So I'm going to dig out my other engine stand. We'll get this thing sat up there and flip it over, pull the pan off after I drain the oil. Got to remember to do that. And then we'll take a look inside and try and find out what went wrong with this thing. You know, I got to admit, this is not the most confidence-inspiring engine stand. That thing is leaning. And I already made a mess. The freaking oil drain just puked all over. Valve cover off. See how it looks. It actually looks pretty good. Compared to a lot of them I've seen, that's pretty darn clean. Yeah, side looks great too. Just pulled all the push rods out, and they look almost brand new. A little bit of rust down here on 3 of them, which is a little weird, but aside from that, all the others look brand new. I wasn't expecting to see flat tops, so I wonder if this is an LQ9. This one is pretty darn pitted. Like, all the other ones are nice and super smooth from being glazed. This one's pitted as heck. Like, it's definitely fixable. You could dingle ball hone that. It's just weird. So now I'm going to flip it over, make a huge mess of coolant on the floor, and we'll pull the oil pan off and see what things look like. But yeah, I was not expecting like flat top pistons. This could be an LQ9. Wasn't expecting that. Jesus, this pan is heavy. Holy shit. Look at all the glitter in this pan, dude. Holy shit. Looks like there's a chunk of something. Ooh, that's bearing. Yeah, that's bearing for sure. Oh boy. Oh god, look at this pickup. That thing's full. Wow. Yeah, that's... I've never seen, like... Here, this is how it's supposed to look. That's... Oh my god. Yeah, this poor girl had a hard life. I would be surprised, shocked even, if this crank was savable. So I'm going to try to flip it over on the world's greatest engine stand where these bolts hit the stand there, which is why I've got it right here. So I'm going to try and roll it over and we'll pull the windage tray off and actually look at the bearings, but man, it's not looking good. Jeez Louise. Alright, got the engine flipped over, started pulling everything apart, got 3 of the main caps off, and we're starting to see a little bit of what happened with this thing. So you can see these first 2, this one on camera doesn't look that bad, but when you run your fingernail over it, it's real bad. This one you can see is pretty chewed up. This one was a little bit of a fight to get out, so I went to this one. You can see this bearing actually spun. It did spin the bearing there. I was going to pull the rods out first, but the crank had so much walk back and forth that I was curious what the mains looked like. And I thought in between here I could kind of see something a little weird right there. Looked like the bearing started to walk out. So I thought I'd pull the mains first to look at things, and yeah. Here's what the number 2 main looked like. Yeah, she rough. She is rough. The cam, from what I can see down there, it looks like it might actually be okay. Like, surprisingly, all the lobes that I can see look alright. Doesn't look like any of them got chewed up, but I'm sure there's got to be something there. But I'm real curious how the rods look, how the rod bearings look. But this crank, man, like this one especially, it really chewed into it. It's probably savable, but it'd have to be turned down like at least 15, probably 20. But yeah, I'm real curious how this one looks. So another thing I've noticed real quick is the guy who put this thing together fucking adores silicone and different sealants. Like, he put it in the corners of, like he put it in the corners for the oil pan gasket like it's a small block Chevy or something. Like, just gobs of it. He put it on the crank bolt for some reason. Like, my goodness, dude. I don't know what that actually is. That's some sort of grease. He had it on the water pump, which, I mean, I've done that, but I've never done it with a gasket. Hopefully no cam bearings come with it. This does not look like a stock cam. This looks like it has a lot more duration. Which could be part of why I had a hard time tuning it. I don't know, we'll just have to see. Tink, tink, clink, clunk, tink. It looks totally fine though. Yeah, it looks totally fine. Sweet. I'm gonna try to look up, I might be able to scan that QR code and see what it is. Alright, got all the pistons out. Every single bearing for the rods is a little galled and not super thrilled, but not the worst I've ever seen. One of the worst I've seen is right here. Check that thing out. So most of what we saw in the oil pan, I'd say, came from this guy right here. I think it was an LS9 cam. Oil pump, it's got some witness marks, but should still work just fine. For anybody who's never seen the inside of an oil pump before, this is what they look like. The front pump on a transmission is about the same way. So this part just sits on the front of the crank and it spins, and it just creates a little cavity that sucks oil in, and then it pressurizes it and shoots it out. That's all. Pretty simple shit. So I think that's probably about it for today's video. I'm gonna get everything cleaned up, and then I'll probably start throwing the 5.3 down in this thing and just try to get it together. I do have to change a couple things on that, but for the most part I don't want to touch it because just like a week or two it was in a running truck and they pulled it out. Next day it was up here, so I don't want to screw with anything. So like I said, I think that's going to wrap up today's video. It was a pain in the ass really to get this thing out of here. I got to weld that one motor mount back up. That sucks, but not the end of the world. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and clicking that bell. I'll see you next time.